Artificial intelligence is already being used to control populations. The world is shifting fast, everyone. Freedoms are eroding, wars loom on the horizon, and global tension is escalating. On this edition of the Endtime Show, I'll do an urgent deep dive into these and other end-time events, proving we certainly are living in the last days. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Endtime Show. You know, the Antichrist will be the worst control freak the world has ever known. Why? Because he will have more tools at his disposal than any other king, warlord, pharaoh, Caesar, or dictator that has ever lived. Revelation 13, 15 through 17, the Bible says, and he was then permitted to give life to this statue or this image of the beast so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die. And he required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on their right hand or in their forehead, their own unique identification number, a digital ID. And no one could buy or sell anything without that mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing his name. It's going to be absolute control, and the Antichrist certainly will use AI as one of his methods of control. It's already happening. Let me be clear, and most people don't even have a clue. We've been sucked into this big cobweb already and don't even know about it, right? Let me be clear, though. AI isn't just about these smart assistants and or a self-driving car. It's not really what it's all about. It's being deployed across the globe as a tool of surveillance, manipulation, and yes, control. Now, you tell me, do you not think the Antichrist will use this as one of his ways of controlling people before it's all over with? Certainly he's going to use AI. Now, is AI all bad? No, it's not. But I want to just keep everybody abreast of the situation. Governments around the world are using AI-powered facial recognition systems to track their citizens. Not criminals, everybody, but just citizens. Take China, for example. Through their Skynet and Sharp Eyes programs, they've installed over 700 million surveillance cameras, many of them equipped with this facial recognition technology. And these cameras can track you from a subway to your job to a state-controlled church. You say, but what if I don't go to a state-controlled church? Well, then you're going to have a problem. Even churches have reported government-installed cameras aimed at identifying attendees and matching them to national ID databases. Now imagine that. Imagine having a camera or cameras, plural, in your church that your government watches you. How do they worship? Who do they worship? What does the preacher teach about or preach about? What is their religious belief system? In times of crisis, do they look to a deity or do they look to the government? You say, oh, Dave, this isn't happening. I'm telling you, it's happening in our world right now. This is certainly precursors to the mark of the beast. Imagine if that was happening in your church, or if they had a camera in your home or in your car. Well, they call it public safety, but of course, if you're in the know-it-all, you call it total surveillance. The problem is it doesn't stop there. AI is being used in predictive policing. You say, well, Dave, that sounds pretty good. Well, preventing crime before it happens. Now we're getting into thought control. But here's the catch. In cities like Chicago or Los Angeles, artificial intelligence tools like Predpol, which is now known as Geolytica, they use historic crime data to target specific neighborhoods, often low-income and minority areas, and it's reinforcing bias and suspicion before a crime is even committed. But it's AI. AI is setting the algorithms and how everything works. Not a man, but a machine. You say, well, that sounds familiar. Sounds like Big Brother in the old 1984. They certainly got an upgrade, didn't they? But think about I want to make sure that we keep this in the mind of the future Antichrist. Imagine way back when they had the Caesar or the pharaohs or some kind of warlord back over in the Middle Ages and things like that. They had nothing like this. So they were controlling, but you could still get by with a few things, right? But imagine AI, cameras everywhere, controlling everything that you do. I can track you using cameras from when you leave work to when you stop and get gas, to where you got groceries, to all the way to your doorstep. Now, this is China today. So think about censorship and thought policing. This is going to be the Antichrist world that he lives in. And let's talk about what you see online. I was talking to somebody just before I went on the program today. Imagine, you say, well, Dave, I'm not going to get caught up in this. Imagine if I took your phone away and I took your computer away and everything that you have, anything that's connected to a Wi-Fi or anything like that. Could you function right now? I would actually have a problem. I function daily on my phone and my computer. And imagine having to go off of that, right? Well, think about your news feeds. I'm in national, international news all day long, everybody. Think about the news feeds. And I have to search for good, reliable news sources. So much of it is bought and paid for. Well, who's setting all that? Well, they're relying on AI to do it now in many cases. So your news feeds, your video suggestions that you're getting from YouTube and different things, all of your search results. Many times I'll search for things and it'll say, no, you can't even bring up this website, Dave. And I'm like, well, why not? Well, we don't want you to know about that, so you can't bring it up. Oh, we just couldn't bring that up. And these things are all curated by algorithms, things that are preset, and they're getting reset all the time. Just when you think you got this one figured out, now it's been reset, and no, we got all these other different things that we're looking at now. AI programs that are deciding what you see, what you hear, and what you believe is popular. It's thought control. And believe me, I'm telling you, it works. You better make sure you know the Bible, and you make sure you know the truth, and make sure you know what's right, because there are algorithms everywhere, machines that are trying to pull you off of that. And if your views don't match the acceptable narrative, then you might be shadow banned or deplatformed even, or even you're demonetized or even digitally erased without warning. Imagine if you've got a business built on a digital platform that somebody with a click of a button could erase that. Many online companies have admitted to reducing the visibility of accounts expressing certain political or religious views. I mean, YouTube, Facebook, and Google, they've done it to Endtime Ministries thousands of times. And this is automated censorship, everyone, and it's happening in a millisecond. Just because we don't align up to the quote-unquote elitist or the globalist narrative that's being put out there. So I want you to think about this moving forward under the Antichrist system. It's already being established here. I mean, it was not even possible until my generation. I was born in 1968. So I was born, there were no laptops and things like that when I was a kid. And when I was a young child, that didn't really happen until I got up into high school and things like that. And they didn't have laptops. They still had them big old huge computer screens and things like that. That happened when I got in high school in the mid 80s. And so there were computers before that, but nothing that we had access like in our home or anything like that. And so until my generation, none of this stuff was possible. And yet some people still question, well, Dave, I don't know if we're living in the end time or not. Come on. You guys are just sensationalizing things. And I'm like, do you follow this stuff at all? Okay. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this today. we're going to do a deep dive. I haven't got there. I haven't got into the true deep dive yet. We'll get there. And then we're going to go into some World War III updates. But first, let me mention Birch Gold. You know, the worst time to buy a life jacket, right, is not when the boat's sinking, or is when the boat's sinking. That'd be the worst time. And you don't buy gold when the economy's already collapsed, right? And you know, clearly others are heeding that advice, is because gold's hitting an all-time highs right now, and it's not too late for you to get on board, right? You need to go to birchgold.com/endtime today. That's the company we trust to help you diversify into physical gold. That's Birch Gold. Birch Gold specializes in helping you convert an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold for no money out of pocket. 1 5-star rating said they're very knowledgeable, helpful, there's no pressure, and that's what I like. I don't like pressure. And so that's what you get when you go with Birch Gold, and that's why we've endorsed them for so long. So get your free info kit on gold by visiting birchgold.com/endtime. And there's no obligation. It's just useful information. And, of course, with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, visit birchgold.com/endtime and let the experts at Birch Gold help you secure your financial future today with gold. All right, so let's do a deep dive here, everybody, because you thought I'd come into your living room, but I'm not there yet, but we're headed there. I want you to imagine this. Imagine a video of a pastor preaching this Sunday, or a video of a political leader speaking on a national or even a global platform, except it's fake. It's called a deep fake. Back in 2024, remember when there was a deep fake video of Ukrainian President Zelensky? He was urging soldiers to surrender, and it spread like wildfire and designed to manipulate, right? But it was a total fake. It was a deep fake video. Well, we're now in a world where you can't trust your own eyes and ears even. And the worst part, most people have no idea it's happening to them. And that's just how the global elite like it. I want you to consider the efforts to give citizens a scorecard and to silence dissent. China's already running, we've talked about it many times, their social credit score, or social credit system. And its AI monitors the behavior of the person, their purchases, their social media posts, where they go to church, everything. Imagine if you had somebody over your shoulder at all times, just following you. They're walking right behind you. If you stop, they bump into you. Well, that's how invasive it is in China. They've got millions, hundreds of millions of cameras everywhere, and they can track you everywhere you go. Oh, did that person just jaywalk? Oh, take some of their score off of their credit. And go to the wrong church? Lose your travel rights. Speak out against the government? Then you're blacklisted. One man was even barred from flying because he criticized the government online. He gave his opinion. I don't like the government is doing this. They barred him from flying on an airplane. And here at home, big tech, they collect massive amounts of data, and your location, where's this person going? Your history, purchases, even your voice commands from smart devices. They say it's for convenience, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a leash, doesn't it? And when AI determines who gets a loan, now think about this. I'm not going to go sit down with a person in a bank anymore. AI looks at my records and determines if I get a loan. This is where we're headed. Or AI determines who gets that job. Or who can buy or sell. Think about it. We're no longer living in a free society at that point. Now, there are people in the United States that would love for the good old US of A to go all the way there. I don't think we ever will, in my opinion. But in many ways, we're already living under digital judgment. Again, YouTube has demonetized Endtime Ministries, the Endtime Show, totally demonetized on YouTube forever. Can't ever get that back. And it's digital judgment on us, right? It's a leash. You guys talk about things that don't line up with YouTube. Now, listen, it might be abortion. It might be one of the things that we really got hammered for, believe it or not, was when I talk about environmentalism and that human-induced global warming, which leads to climate change, is a hoax. That's one of them, not the only thing, but it's one of the things that Doug Vince and I have really got hammered on when we talk about that. I've posted articles on Facebook before. Now, this was, several months ago, and within just a few hours, it's taken down. No, you can't have that on there, Dave. You went on and proved that human-induced global warming leads to climate change, that's an absolute hoax. We can't have that, so they pull the article down. This is the world that Endtime Ministries is living in right now. But everybody wants the convenience of of a computer and a smartphone and all this other, but it's really the illusion of convenience. Remember that term, the illusion of convenience. Oh, this is so convenient. Man, I can take my phone with me everywhere I go. And some people are so addicted to that phone, you can't have a conversation with them at a restaurant because somebody may have texted me in the last 2 seconds. I got to make sure I check my phone again. Oh, hold on a minute. Somebody just texted me. I got to answer this. No, you don't. We're having dinner. Conversation. What happened to a good old conversation? I told somebody the other day, at my age, the one thing I'm looking for the most is a good conversation. But with a phone, that's hard to have, right? Man, I got a text and it's somebody just, look at this. I just got to check my phone all the time. It's the illusion of convenience. Sometimes control doesn't come through fear. Sometimes it comes through comfort. Getting people so reliant upon comfort that they can't break away, no matter how hard they try. I'm so addicted to this comfort that I can't break away and not function with these things. Smart homes. Walk in and you clap a couple times, the lights come on. It's comfort. And you get somebody addicted to that, and then they complain because they got to go flip a switch. Or smart cars, or smart cities, everything personalized, everything connected. But every device, it's a data collecting vacuum. Take the Amazon Alexa. Think about that. In Germany, a man requested his data that was in there and got back over 1,700 audio clips, some recorded when he wasn't even using the device. And then there's the now shelved the Sidewalk Labs project up in Toronto, and which wanted to turn the city into a smart neighborhood, and it included sensors to track foot traffic, everybody's use of energy, and even waste disposal. It was everything in their life. That's why they want you to, it's called the Internet of Things or the Internet of Everything. They want everything connected to Wi-Fi. All your new devices, a sweeper, a coffee maker, connect that to Wi-Fi. Why? They want to track how much you use it. It's called the Internet of Everything. But, of course, it's all for optimization, they say. But critics called it a surveillance playground. You don't need shackles if the cage is made of comfort. Now, what can we do? You say, Dave, man, you painted a pretty bleak picture here. Well, of course, I know that what they're going to use, what they will eventually use for bad, I'm going to use for good. And, of course, we're using the internet and different things to preach and teach the gospel of the kingdom of God. But what they're doing with, now I'm not saying what they're doing, but what some people would want to do with ChatGPT and all these AI things is to remove your ability to even think, hey, I've got a term paper due. ChatGPT, write me a term paper on environmentalism. Or ChatGPT, write me an article on world government. And I don't have to do the research. I don't have to deep dive. I don't have to go through the process of stretching my mind and making things work and growing and becoming a productive member of society, because now I have a computer program that'll do it for me. Right? It's comfort. Just get me addicted to the comfort. And the Antichrist is going to be a master at this. Now, I know some of it sounds heavy, but here's the truth. You can push back. You can demand transparency in how AI is used, what data is collected, try to decrease your digital footprint, or control who has access to it and how it's used. Make sure you know these things. And I still know people today who don't own a computer, don't own a smartphone even, believe it or not. And of course, they're going to somebody and ask them, hey, can you call so-and-so and this, that, and the other? And very few people. Everybody's got a smartphone, don't they? But we can also support leaders who stand for privacy, freedom, accountability, transparency. That's why a lot of people, I believe, voted for President Trump, because everything's transparent. I mean, you want to know what Doge is doing with Elon Musk? Go to the Doge website. When President Trump signs an executive order, he's right there with the cameras on. And the guy that is handing it to him says, hey, everybody, this is for to keep men from playing in women's sports. And then he hands it to President Trump. Trump signs it right there in front of everybody. He doesn't use an auto pen, okay? It's transparency. Here's what we're doing in the Trump administration. Because we've been so far removed from any kind of transparency over the years. But imagine how the Antichrist will be. Think about this. He will demand absolute control. So, and again, up until my generation, I'm 56 years old. Again, I was born in 1968. So think about that. Until my generation, none of this was possible. Until the invention of the computer, the internet, blockchain technology, certainly now AI and all these algorithms and everything they're doing to just absolutely control people. None of this was possible. There wasn't a pharaoh, a warlord, a Caesar, a king. Nobody before that had access to any of this. They had spies and different things like that. So you can also choose privacy tools. Very important. The encrypted apps, privacy-respecting browsers, and say no to devices that spy on you. Control your digital footprint. This is something that can help you. And most importantly, stay spiritually alert. You know, the Bible says, 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Here's the thing, everybody. A lot of people on the earth have no clue that there's an Antichrist coming. You know, it's not even on their radar. They're just ambling through life. And so they're getting so hooked on convenience. You know, it is convenient to stay at home and not attend church, isn't it? Isn't that convenient? Sit at home in your pajamas and watch the preacher preach. Yeah, so-and-so, that sounds great. But then they have an altar call, and what? Yikes. They're worshiping and clapping, and yeah, I'm sitting at home with my bucket of popcorn, and boy, this is awesome. You know what, everybody? It's convenience, right? Now, if you can't go, I understand. But the Bible says, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together, even so much more so as you see that day approaching. For if you sin willfully, there remaineth no more sacrifice. Yikes. I mean, who put those scriptures in my Bible? Right? So make sure that you're being diligent, that you're being watching, and that you're making sure that I'm doing everything I can. Very, very important. And you know, technology is not neutral. It reflects the values of those who control it. And let's make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. How does the United Nations use digital ID to economically sanction people? Because let's face it, the United Nations is the seat of world government in the earth. So I want to know, I told you that these it's a precursor to the mark of the beast system, right? And so the United Nations, if the United Nations is going to move eventually over to Europe, or that the control of all of that's going to go over there, most of the guts of the United States the United Nations is already over in Europe. And so the Antichrist having control of that, how's all that going to work? Well, we need to talk about the United Nations and how they're using digital ID to economically sanction people. You say, oh, Dave, they're not doing that yet. Oh, yes, they are. And I'll give you a couple examples when we get back from the break. And then we'll get off into a World War III update, because I want you to know what's coming, where we're at right now, and things are really kind of closing in here. And so I want to keep you guys abreast of the situation. So a little bit more of the digital ID and AI, and then World War III on the backside of the break.
A reminder of the breaking news this hour. At least 22 people are reported to have died in a strike in Gaza.
The rise of Islam.
We're trying to bring answers for so many families desperately.
Is the Israel-Hamas-Iran conflict World War III? So let's talk about the four horsemen. What do these horses symbolize? These are the four spirits of the heavens which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. In the end time, the true people of God will not be weak, anemic, and defeated. These prophesied events are revealing we are quickly approaching the time of the Great Tribulation right now.
Now streaming on OneSource and available to order at endtime.com/screen. Go to endtime.com/screen or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the Endtime Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
Welcome back, everybody. You know, there's one thing that AI, no matter how powerful it gets, one thing it cannot do, and that's drink coffee. First Cup is a Christian-owned Patriot coffee company out of the great state of Texas. They've got 11 different roasts, each one named after a specific piece of American history. And you can get all of the roasts by going to firstcup.com. Use code ENDTIME to get 10% off. If you subscribe, they'll give you an additional 10% off. So go to firstcup.com, use code ENDTIME to get 10% off of a great cup of coffee today. All right. Now, here's the question. How does the United Nations use digital ID to economically sanction people. Because that's where it's all headed. The Bible says they're going to all be given a unique digital identification number, without which they're not going to be able to buy or sell. It's going to be a global economic sanctioning system. Folks, it's already being established. The United Nations itself does not directly economically sanction individuals via digital ID, but it sets the legal and procedural framework that member states and organizations implement, increasingly using digital tools, including digital identity systems. Now, let me give you a breakdown of how it works. So the role of the United Nations in economic sanctions, the UN Security Council can impose targeted sanctions on individuals, groups, and entities. And these would include, and we've seen this, freezing assets, travel bans, and arms embargoes. Now, these are most often used against those involved in terrorism, nuclear proliferation, or human rights abuses. However, that can change in the future, right? You go to the wrong church. You say the wrong thing against the government. You don't want to comply with the edicts of the Antichrist, then they can sanction you, right? That's where it's headed. The Bible says they're going to control your buying and selling, economic sanctioning you. And so the list of sanctioned individuals and these entities is maintained in the UN Consolidated Sanctions List. So how digital ID connects to enforcement, so while the UN doesn't create or mandate digital IDs itself, enforcement of its sanctions has increasingly relied on digital identity infrastructures, and here's how. Number one, identity matching. Financial institutions and governments, they screen customers against UN sanction lists using Know Your Customer, or KYC systems. Digital identity platforms are biometric passports, national IDs, digital wallets. They help precisely match names and prevent false positives. That's why they want to get everybody on the planet to have their own unique identification number, because then they can use that against you. Why do you number people? To control them. Look at the Jews in the Holocaust. They all had them numbers tattooed on them. That was for control. That's the only reason you number somebody. Other than that, freedom. Also, these cross-border data sharing from nation to nation. Digital ID systems allow international collaboration via interoperable data. You say, well, hey, if I created if I did a crime in the United States, I'd just go to Uruguay. It doesn't matter if you got a digital ID. They can find you anywhere on the planet. If everything goes away from, if we go away from a physical means of currency onto digital, then you go to make a transaction over in, let's say somewhere in Europe or in South Africa, wherever, then the international community could track you down in an instant and contact the authorities. That person there, they can't buy or sell. And if someone under the UN sanctions tries to open a bank account in another country or digital ID checks, they can flag them. And think about the blockchain and digital ledger that use some UN-affiliated bodies and member states explore blockchain to monitor money flows, freeze crypto wallets, or trace sanctioned assets. And then there's real-world examples and implementations. So think about this. Let's go back to Afghanistan as one of them I wanted to bring up. So after, this was 2021, so you say, man, we're here already in 2025. Yeah, and we're already over 1/4 of the way through this year. Think about it. I mean, time is ripping. Afghanistan in 2021, after the Taliban took over, digital payment platforms and ID systems were used to control aid access, often tied to UN sanction compliance. North Korea sanctions against its regime led to tighter digital tracking and crypto assets. And then here's one of the ones I wanted to bring up for sure. The UN's World Food Program. This is the way the UN controls it already. They use biometric digital IDs for aid delivery if an individual is under sanctions, access to those systems could be restricted based on UN Security Council resolutions. Here's the deal. It's not just that. I talked to you about a couple of years ago, after the Syrian civil war, that they sent refugees down into the country of Jordan. And those refugees, they were in a big compound, and they had like a commissary in the middle, like a little grocery store. And they were given X amount of a digital currency. They would go there. Let's say they had given $200 a week. They would go there and they would do a retinal scan, and that retinal scan would query their account all the way to a United Nations database and come back and say, yes, you've still got $50 on your account. You can buy these products. But if they were out of money for that week and they spent too much, then it would say, nope, you can't buy this. The United Nations database says, no, you've overdrawn. And so they'd have to put the products back. Folks, this has been happening for years. Another one would be concerns and ethical implications. So think about privacy. Sanctions enforcement using digital ID raises concerns about surveillance and wrongful targeting, right? And then, of course, financial exclusion. Now, this is where we get into the biblical. Innocent individuals with similar names, inadequate documentation may be blocked from financial services, and financial inclusion. Certainly, without this number, you can't buy or sell. Again, folks, until my generation, this wasn't even possible. This wasn't possible when my father-in-law, Irvin Baxter, was born back in 1945. Not even possible. And digital ID with biometric identification, tying you to your digital ID, nobody can fake that. Okay? Everybody has different biometric ID. Everybody. And so I know that there may be identical twins, but somehow, some way, they've still got a difference. And then, of course, think about centralized control. This is what the Antichrist surely will use. And some fear that this digital ID tied to sanctions system could be used to stifle dissent and restrict freedom. So while the UN doesn't directly use digital ID systems to sanction people, its sanctions are enforced using digital identity infrastructures by governments and financial institutions. And this allows for precise, real-time economic restrictions all over the globe, but also raises concerns about oversight, misuse, and human rights. Okay. Now, let me give you one more here real quick. Well, I tell you what, I may skip this last one. No, I'm going to keep on going. Here we go. I want you to see this. So when the Taliban regained control of Afghanistan, again, back in 2021, let me get a little deeper into that. The United Nations imposed or maintained various sanctions against that leadership, and at the same time, the global financial system, it's already established, everybody. These institutions that complied with the UN and sanctions list, they cut off access to those funds. And then, of course, the World Food Program that used biometrical digital IDs, fingerprints, and iris scans to distribute the food. So it was very important that we understand the role of all this. Now, I want to go to the biblical prophecy connection because Revelation 13, again, this is where the book of Revelation becomes deeply relevant. Because after all I've been through, Revelation 13, 16, and 17, remember it says, he required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or their forehead, and that no one would be able to buy or sell without that mark. So think about digital ID systems linked to financial permissions that reflect this prophecy. The system is already set up. And global control, a centralized or interlinked system that determines who can participate in the economy or sanction via their identity. Hey, that person there will not comply with the edicts of the global ruler, so he can't buy or sell. And that's why I don't ever want a central bank digital currency established here in the United States. And then finally, moral compliance. And in prophecy, a refusal to worship the beast results in economic exclusion. And in real-world systems, think about this, in failure to comply with the global rules or being accused of such may result in the same. And so, of course, these one-world government trends, the UN doesn't operate alone. It works in tandem with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, tying digital ID to financial inclusion. Tech partners like Microsoft, MasterCard, and others in the ID 2020 Alliance. All of this is it's already set in place years ago, everybody. I wrote articles on this ID 2020 back in like 2018, 2019. And then the World Economic Forum, of course, it advocates for digital trust and global interoperability of IDs. And then these structures form the architecture and control the same that some believe mirrors the beast system, where political, financial, and religious power are united. Now think about that. And so it's very, very important that we understand what's going on here. The system that can be used by the Antichrist to economically sanction every single person on the planet. Now, I know that there will be people that do not take the mark of the beast. It's something you can't do. You say, well, I use AI right now. Am I backslidden? Am I going to hell? No, you're not. The Antichrist, the mark of the beast, it can't be implemented until the beast comes on the scene. However, there are things that you can do to reduce your footprint, your digital footprint. And, you know, use cash and make sure you don't go on, you don't allow access to a lot of your websites that you go on. Oh, yeah, I'll sign up for this and I'll do that and I'll allow you to check me and I'll sign up. No, I try to stay away from all that stuff. I go to the news, and so I use my computer for good. But there's a lot of things that this thing can be used for bad if you're not careful. And so it's certainly something that I want you to be watchful for. That's the whole reason for my program today. Be diligent, be watchful. Make sure you're watching so that you can understand what's going on, because this is of utmost importance, everybody. I don't want you to be duped in the end time. The Bible says that during the end time, they that do know their God will be strong and do exploits, and they that understand among the people will instruct many. That's what I'm trying to do today. Make sure that we're wary. We know what's coming, so that there comes a time when we need to get out of it, we'll get out.
The Roman government controlled the world. So many people were looking for a different Messiah, a rescuing Messiah. Remember the story of the woman at the well. The woman saith unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. And Jesus said unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. Jesus very clearly stated that he was God and that he was the Messiah. We're even more blessed because we haven't seen those things, but yet we believe. When Jesus cried out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? He knew every one of these prophecies had to be fulfilled. He said, it is finished.
Now streaming on OneSource and available to order at endtime.com/revealed. Go to endtime.com/revealed or call 800-ENDTIME.
Okay, everybody. Now that you know that, I want you to just keep an eye on AI. Let me give you an update here on World War III, because tensions are escalating between U.S., Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. It's all it's spiraling out of control. So, in a high-stakes standoff, really over Iran's nuclear program, and I think that's the thing that might bring it all to a head. Both nations are, Iran and the United States, they're kind of flexing their military muscle, right? and exchanging this fiery rhetoric. The problem is this rhetoric leads to missiles flying before it's all over with if you're not careful. Back over the weekend, Donald Trump issued his most direct threat yet. In an interview with NBC News, President Trump said if Iran don't make a deal, then, in other words, to get rid of their nuclear aspirations, there's going to be bombs flying. Bombs the like of which they have never seen before. So that followed a string of earlier remarks that he was hinting at potential military action and the imposition of oil sanctions. And President Trump said that Iran has a choice. You return to the negotiating table, or you can face devastating consequences. Well, I'm looking at World War III from a biblical perspective. The Bible says, loose the 4 angels bound in the great river Euphrates for the killing. And as a result of that, 1/3 of the world's population is going to be destroyed. There's Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. Turkey says they want Jerusalem. Syria and Iraq, they're all in upheaval. But I'm telling you, when Iran wants a nuclear weapon because they want to destroy Israel and the United States of America, and they're the largest state sponsor of terrorism on the planet, and they've got big brother and big sister China and Russia right over her shoulder saying, we will give you nuclear weapons. And Iran is not backing down. Ayatollah Khamenei responded on Monday, and he said, any U.S. aggression will be met with a strong reciprocal blow. Iran state media reported that ballistic missiles are now loaded and in launch positions across the country. So they were saying, hey, United States, bring it on. Donald Trump, you're going to give us an ultimatum? Let's go. And so that's the message. If the U.S. strikes, Iran is ready to retaliate. And adding to the drama, Trump revealed that he sent a letter to Khamenei earlier in March and demanded that Iran dismantle its nuclear program, halt uranium enrichment, and cut ties with groups like Hezbollah and the Houthis. In exchange, now those are terrorist proxies of Iran. He's saying cut those ties. Iran is never going to do that. Well, in exchange, President Trump promised that we'll lift sanctions, we'll end Iran's isolation, and because Iran used to be an ally of the United States. Remember, all the way back in the early 70s. So then he said, I'm giving you a 2-month deadline. Well, there's a problem when you give a 2-month deadline. The deadline's going to come to an end. So, of course, Iran denied that they received the letter. Those sources say that indirect talks may be already underway. Meanwhile, our Pentagon made moves, and they sent B-2 stealth bombers to Diego Garcia. And that's a key U.S. military base. I think it's ran by the British in the Indian Ocean. So there are military analysis that say the deployment aligns with President Trump's ultimatum. And those B-2s are able to carry those humongous bunker buster bombs because Iran's nuclear capabilities are buried deep, deep, deep in the ground. Well, we sent B-2 bombers over there that have bunker buster bombs that can reach out and touch somebody down below. And so satellite images show at least 4 bombers in position. I think there's more, alongside a fleet of oil tanker aircraft and cargo planes. So all of this unfolds at U.S. intelligence agencies. They continue to report that Iran is not currently building a nuclear bomb. Yeah, right. But there are some concerns that remain with uranium enrichment levels at now at about 60%, dangerously close to weapons grade. And I want to go down here to something I want to talk to you about called the China-Russia problem. I wanted to make sure I talk to you about this today because when we talk about Iran's nuclear aspirations, their ambitions, the spotlight usually falls on Tehran. It's a little bit farther here. The supreme leader, the Revolutionary Guard, and the country's nuclear scientist. But there's a much bigger thing at play here, and that is one of the West often overlooks. And that's the quiet but critical support coming from China, Russia, and North Korea. these countries aren't just bystanders, okay? We're talking about the U.S. and Iran. That's not what we're just talking about here. We're talking about bringing Russia and China on this. Why? Well, they are deeply involved in helping Iran fast-track its path to nuclear weapons. So there's much more than meets the eye here. And they're doing so with increasing urgency, especially after President Trump issued that 2-month ultimatum to Iran back in March. And so Tehran, their nuclear weapons are more than just a military tool. They're a shield for survival. They're a megaphone for the revolutionary ideology and a deterrent against foreign intervention. But for China and Russia, a nuclear Iran serves as a broader agenda and one that pits them directly against the United States and its allies. Now, if you look at this, again, I'm looking at it from a World War III scenario because I know, in my opinion, and I could be wrong on this because the peace agreement could happen, but it doesn't look like the peace agreement is anywhere near going to happen right now. It looks like World War III is going to kick off, and then on the heels of that would be the entrance ramp to the Antichrist, and the peace agreement would get signed starting the final 7 years. I don't think there's anybody that will get that negotiated before World War III. Something has got to make Israel and the Palestinians want to be so sick of war that they'll somehow sign an agreement. Now, again, I want to tell you, I could be wrong. Maybe somehow, some way, a miracle will happen and they'll get an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement signed before that. But I think it's highly unlikely. I think the World War III is next, in my opinion. So that's why I'm watching this thing like a hawk, because I told you, I've said this for a long time, Iran's not going away. They haven't went away since the late 70s. And they preach a religious doctrine of we've got to destroy Israel and we've got to destroy the United States to quicken the coming of their Mahdi, their Messiah figure. So, Iran, they are a strategic pillar in what's come to be known as the axis of resistance. And that's an informal alliance between Western dominance and or I should say against Western dominance, China and Russia. They see Iran as a critical partner in challenging the U.S. influence, especially across the Middle East. And their support for Iran's nuclear program isn't just symbolic, it's hands-on and deliberate. And now you can see when President Trump gave a 2-month ultimatum, I'm sitting back going, well, hold on a minute. I mean, if Iran, now that some people are saying, I've read some articles that said, well, Iran is willing to go into talks. Iran is a master at just kind of pushing the can down the road. And the way they do that is they say, well, let's go into talks. But the talks never result in anything. They're still hammering down on Israel with Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. Donald Trump said, you're going to stop all that, or we're going to bomb you. Now, can anybody show me how that's going to happen before the end of 2 months? And think about Russia's military alliance with Iran. It's already visible. Iran has supplied Moscow with drones, long-range missiles, and artillery, and these are weapons that are used to fight Ukraine. Despite heavy Western sanctions, it's still going on. And in return, Russia appears determined to keep Iran military capable, stable, and defiant. China, on the other hand, continues to prop up Iran economically and diplomatically. It's shielding Iran from sanctions, investing in infrastructure, and crucially, offering technology and potential nuclear applications. Now imagine, it shows you where China's at. We're in bed with China in many ways. President Trump sees that as one of our major enemies, our major threats. Why? Because China is involved directly in Iran's nuclear ambitions. And so it shows you where that, because Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terrorism on the planet. Who in the world would want to be involved in their nuclear ambitions? Think about that. Knowing what they're going to do with it. And so I wish we weren't dependent upon China at all. And we may not be before World War III is over with. But it is worth remembering that China once helped Pakistan develop its nuclear program, and Pakistan later aided North Korea. And today, the same pipeline appears to be at work with Iran, now the primary beneficiary. So China sees Iran not just as a strategic partner, but as a gateway. Iran sits at a key junction of Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. This is grand plan to expand Chinese power through these big trade routes and energy corridors, and to influence stretching across Eurasia and even the Middle East. And a nuclear-armed Iran is part of that vision. You say, yikes, what happens now? Well, since President Trump, that ultimatum back on March 7th, there's been this noticeable acceleration. Iran officials met with Chinese counterparts in Beijing, and not long after that, the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, he rejected Trump's warnings. Nah, we don't have to bow down to your edicts. We'll do whatever we want. Bring it on, big boy. Well, Iran would not be saying that if they didn't have Russia and China sitting over her shoulder saying, go, go, go. Let's get them in a fight. So the timing is very telling, everybody. And it suggests that Iran may have received these assurances that no matter what Washington does, that Beijing and Moscow, Russia and China, has its back. And it isn't just a bluster, everybody. One Iranian official recently claimed that the country could assemble a nuclear bomb in as little as 1 week. And that's not just alarming, but it's a signal. Iran may be closer to a nuclear breakout than the world realizes. And if true, that could mark a true turning point. Again, I want to make sure you understand, Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terrorism. It's not gangs down here in Mexico, even though that's bad. I'm talking about they were the ones that gave the green light for Hamas to invade Israel on back in October 2023, October 7th. Iran, they're willing to kill masses of people. Imagine them having a nuclear weapon. Now, Russia and China are both involved in helping them do that. And President Trump has given them a 2-month, this is back on March 7th, a 2-month ultimatum. You either sign an agreement to get rid of your nuclear weapons and cut off your terrorist proxies, or we're going to bomb you. Now, we'll have to see how it all plays out. But what am I watching? I'm watching World War III being one of the next, if not the next, prophecy on God's prophetic timeline. Be in prayer, everybody. God bless.